So, we talked about this a little earlier. We mentioned we'd bring it up again, is just how the lifting culture is changing in general, but also specifically with more impressive female lifters. Even when I got into this 15 years ago, I almost never heard of, there were the models, like the fitness models, yes. But in terms of like really impressive female lifters, it wasn't really around. And now, there's a lot of them. I don't know if you guys seen that one girl in high school, just like these absurd numbers. Like she's heavier, but talking like 300 plus pound bench.
It was a larger. She was black, right?
Yeah.
And she was benched like 315.
Yeah. Insane.
Yeah.
I was just like
monster.
Yeah. So I'm seeing the shift.
Media, right? Yeah.
What's that?
Part of that is social media. We see it more because now we have social. It kind of brings everybody. All the strong people are coming out of the woodwork. So
right. But people are embracing it. I think most of the women I know who are taking lifting seriously, they're cool with lifting heavy and they like it.
Yes.
Yeah.
And we have organizations like USPA that put on, all female meets, and that's getting more common with organizations putting on meets specifically for females because women want to compete with other females.
But I think that's also a consequence of the changes because they couldn't have done that 10 years ago because they would have had 4 people.
Yeah.
Right. And there has been this step change. Because like I said, I've been doing this. I've been in gyms since I was 15. I've been working in them to some one degree or another since I was 25. So and that was in 95. I've watched the changes occur from maybe seeing the occasional handful of women in the weight room, usually kind of faffing about with light weights, to some women really pushing themselves. And I do think social media, for all the bad that it does, and it does, right? There's a lot of garbage on social media. There's a lot of garbage on the internet, is the nature of the universe, but there's a lot of good too. And right, so we had this cultural idea, and it was mainly bodybuilding magazines. They would see these steroid using bodybuilding women that were 180 pounds of ripped muscle and go, I don't want to look like that.
Yeah.
On top of just not being accepted in the weight room, right? Women would come into the weight room and guys would be guys and they would chase them out. And I used to tell guys will complain, man, why don't women ever want to come be part of my hobby? Because you guys act like macho mullet heads all the time, right? They come in and all they get is either told what they're doing wrong or hit on and annoyed and frustrated. That's why they used to have women's only gyms back in the day, like Curves, love it or hate it. Love it or hate it. And they did a lot wrong. They got more women lifting than anybody else because it gave women a space without men. And it makes a big difference. But social media has finally, women are seeing, okay, we've got these fantastic female lifters and moving all this weight while retaining, and I want to be real careful in my language here, their femininity. And and I know that's a really loaded term. And there's lifters that, we're seeing an increase in super heavyweight powerlifters and strong women competition. And I'm not saying it's all about appearance, but let's face it, there's a population of women that is their fear. I don't want to end up looking like a man or losing, and that's cultural, but that's changing. And they're going, holy crap. You can deadlift 400 pounds and still, like I said, again, I hate to say look feminine. Hopefully your listeners know what I'm talking about. And I'm not trying.
I rarely hear that anymore.
And it's really changed the attitude. I honestly think a big change is due to CrossFit. And as much as I have a lot of problems with what CrossFit does, they made being buff as a woman cool. They really changed the cultural lens. And there's other changes. I looked at some research a while back. If you actually look at Miss America competitors from a decade ago to now, they are more muscular. Now, when I say that, right, we're not even talking bikini level physique, but they went from being sort of, the old skinny fat look to having visible muscle tone. There is a cultural shift going on. And what I'm seeing is this big feed forward cycle. So women are seeing that. They're going, hell, that looks awesome. I want to do that. And it's become, and as they're coming more into the gym, whether the men like it or not, they're having to deal with it. And I'll tell a funny story, or Sumi will tell it here in just a second. And that becomes and then they come get involved in powerlifting, which is one of the most accepting lifting subcultures. Like physique subcultures, I'm sorry, but they're very elitist. They're very, if you're not in perfect shape, you don't count. And if you are in better shape than they are, they hate you because they can't win. Powerlifting, you can show up and squat the bar and you will get cheered because you had the guts to show up.
Yes.
Right? How many male lifters are like, oh, I want to do a meet. I want to get my bench up first. They're afraid to fail in public and they're never going to go. If you show up and lift and put it on the line, you will get accolades.
Yeah, it is a very supportive community. Dave, I'll hear from, women all over the world who, message me on Facebook and be like, "You are super inspirational. Thank you for what." It's amazing to hear that. It's fuel for my.
And so as more women are entering the sport, it's becoming more accepting. Like Sumi said, there are now all women's meets, which have a very different vibe. When you take men out of the equation in any sport, it changes it. And the women, they're fierce competitors while being supportive of one another. That's a tough mix. Like, men will acknowledge other big lifts, but at the end of the day, they just lost. Mm-hmm. Women will acknowledge, and it's a different vibe. One of the things I'm really seeing that is a real explosion in masters women's lifting.
Yeah, that's awesome.
And this is a really fascinating one to me, because these are women who are in their 40s or 50s and even older, who they grew up of the generation being told, "You can't do this. This is unfeminine. This will make this, that, and the other happen." And they're realizing it was BS. And are they lifting the heaviest weights? No, but it doesn't matter. They're coming out and they're being competitive and they're being encouraged. And then other women are seeing that and they're feeling better and healthier and bone density and blah, 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 blah. And other women see that and go, I
can do that.
I can do it too. Yes. And then those women are raising their daughters completely differently than their mothers may have. Rather than being told, "You need to eat a salad for lunch because that's how you stay skinny," they're being told, you need to eat more protein and go squat.
Right.
And so, because I think at this point, female powerlifting and Olympic lifting, I don't know about strong women competition, it's about 45% women's involvement right now. And that is up from when you would see at most a handful.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Texas has a really unique high school girls powerlifting is really huge here, because there's a lot of kind of nowhere boony towns where that's what you do. It's like bunch of folks, so like they grow up on farms or doing labor, and the girls have to deal with Texas boys. And so there's actually a huge, but Texas is different. Texas women are terrifying in a good way. And, but it's really exploded in the last few years, and it's only going to keep increasing because it has to. Once the top is off the box, there's no way to go back. And it's awesome. It's awesome to watch. The only other thing I want to add, just because this is funny, regarding women in the gym, right? Because for a while, women were just really, if they came and goofed off, they just got, or didn't work hard, it was one thing. But men get way more worked up by women outlifting them.
Oh, yes.
Nothing. I've trained a lot of strong women over the years. Nothing gives me more joy. Nothing than watching scary boys away when Sumi's over there doing reps with 275 in the deadlift. I've chased guys away from the bench press by having a female trainee doing paused 135 benches in per. They would just go do something else. Yeah. And it's hilarious. It is using better technique and better form. It's hilarious to me. So
loves it, and we absolutely do clear the gym floor. I couldn't tell you if it's because I'm outlifting them or if my face is so scary from the lifting. Probably a bit of both.
So last one is just, last time, Lyle, you and I talked about how we're kind of in this echo chamber, right? And as much as I think of fitness as the, evidence-based community, that's really not how most people see the fitness world, right? And what we see on Instagram. And so in one sense, it's awesome what's changing, with females and powerlifting and all of that. But I would still say the predominant, picture that we see for women's fitness is still just the Instagram, boobs, butt, all of that modeling. And so, I mean, Sumi, as somebody who works so hard with what you do, how do you feel about that, and that's kind of the representation for females in fitness?
You're absolutely right. But the unfortunate reality is that, sex sells. And it doesn't matter if I put out a super meaningful post on, mental preparation or habit change. A female putting out a picture of, of herself in booty shorts and whatever, a bra, is going to get so much more likes than anything I could put together if it's, has some sort of substance to it. That's just reality. And so I think if you have a problem with that, then you get to choose what you're being fed in terms of social media, right? Your feed is what you select. So my my Instagram feed is full of strong powerlifters and stuff like that. It's not full of hypersexualized females. But obviously that resonates with somebody. Sex does sell, and that's part of the reality. And Lyle is super knowledgeable. We have so many people in our field who, as you mentioned, are evidence-based. And at the end of the day, unfortunately, they're never going to be as popular as somebody like a Dr. Oz or a Jillian Michaels or some sort of person that, has something to sell you. I mean, what does Lyle sell? He sells books, right?
Yeah. And nobody wants to read books.
Yeah.
I mean, yeah, who reads anymore, right? So there's that. So there are people who are preying on some sort of emotional vulnerability and they want to sell you something, right? And what are we doing here? So you're right. It is, to some extent, it is an echo chamber. So yeah.
At the same time, this might sound like a weird, because I talk about this in podcasts, and like many women do tend to get really sort of addicted to strength, but at the same time, not all women are built for it. Right. For a while in like the 2000s, when there was a group of women that were kind of getting into heavy lifting and this and that and the other, and they were like part of that riot girl movement. And it was like, all women should be doing heavy fives in the squat, and not all women are built for it. Not all women are psychologically attuned to it. And again, this is not a criticism. It simply is what it is. Even with all the nonsensical physique Instagram garbage, and there's a lot of it. With the movements I see and just go, why? Where all you need to do is basically be hot and in shape and you can have 1 million followers. It's like, if that's what a woman wants to do, I don't have any fundamental, like I said, there are many ways to the path. I'm seeing women in general training harder and hitting the weights. And if that's what they enjoy and is keeping them coming back to the gym and meets their goals, I have trouble, as someone who wants to see people being fit, having a problem with it. Do I get really frustrated with the noise? Sure. Yeah. I always have. I'll always be angry that there's so much garbage being out there. Watching Dr. Oz just makes me want to hit somebody. The amount of confusion and nonsense that man contributes, because as a doctor, he should know better. But at the same time, anything that gets more people training and thinking exercising consistently, that's why one of these days I'm going to write an article that will anger everybody called In Defense of Planet Fitness, because I'm tired of people, it's this, it's that, and the other. I'm like, you know what? They've gotten more people exercising than any amount of macho prattling, because they made it a play. Like, well, you can't even squat. And I've been doing this 25 years. You know how many good squats I've seen in the gym? Maybe maybe 2 dozen now, and I've trained a dozen of those myself, right? Most people, as long as they're doing something, maybe they move on, maybe they don't. Does it affect you? No. Then why do you care, right? That you don't, Planet Fitness isn't for you. It's not for me. It's not for her, even though I train her at Anytime Fitness. But it gets people doing stuff. And like I said, all the social media, it's done a lot of bad. It's done a lot of good.
And you can use the bad for good. I mean, you can use the images that you see, and you can I have a young daughter, and so she's impressionable. She's that age where, the images, like what she's, growing up to being used to seeing, is what's going to stay with her for the rest of her life. But if you use that opportunity to be like, well, we'll look at this picture, but look how many filters it takes to look this way, or maybe we can ask. And I don't try to judge people because I am in fitness. I constantly see selfies, and that's totally okay. Maybe that makes that girl happy. Maybe that's what she needs. Maybe she needs the affirmation, and it's totally okay. That's what she wants to do. She's well in her right to do that.
I also think one thing we have forgotten, and then I'll be quiet so we can wrap this up, is we are still very much, I think, in the early days of women's involvement in the strength sports, right? Actually, I wrote it. I did a little historical research for what will eventually be the Women's Book Volume 2, right? It's only at like the 2008 Olympics, women are finally at like they went from about 0% involvement in the early 20th century. They're almost to parity with men. But the strength sports have really been the last bastion, right? The first women's Olympics in Olympic lifting was the year 2000. Men have been competing since 1900, right? Their first world championship was 87. Again, men 1896. The first women's bodybuilding competition was in like 1977. Men were competing from actually the early 1920s. Strongman is a very new sport, so it's not quite the same. Powerlifting, again, 60s, early 70s is about when it formed. But like at that time, there was literally one female powerlifter, and that was Jan Todd, who is an absolute legend in the sport. She is still writing. Her and her husband, Terry, who passed away recently, they keep a history of lifting at the University of Texas, Austin. She was probably the first female powerlifter, and nobody wanted her there, but her husband, she forced her way into a sport that was not accepting of women. She really, truly broke that barrier, and it's been a slow grind, and now it's only been about 10 years. So I think it's just going to accelerate. And it may split, right? We're going to see a lot more. I mean, physique is blowing up. They've got 18,000 different physique divisions now. It's like bodybuilding, classic physique, classic this, bikini, bikini that, figure, fitness, health. Like it's getting absurd because there's so many people that want to do it, but more women are, and I think we'll see both an acceleration and we may see more of a division, and that's fine too. But I think wait another decade and let's see where women's powerlifting, there may be a shift, there may not be, but we are still in such the early days of women really entering this sport, and they're increasing every meet. There's new women, there's new faces. The divisions in the different weight classes in masters are starting to increase in number gradually, and I think it will only continue, and it's awesome.